Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Harris. Here for another edition of Local Author Series. Today, I have with me LaMonique Mac. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ron. I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for joining us. So let's get right into it. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I am an author, I'm a publisher, and a writing coach. And I have published a number of books around town here in Tuscaloosa. Um, and I also have my writing ministry, which is called Ubiquitous Ministries. And I publish books. Here's an example of one. It's called Overcoming Anxiety in the Hood. So and it's Christian writing, because I also do Christian writing, nonfiction as well as fiction. And whereas around town, a lot of times when people are trying to introduce people to Jesus, you'll see like a track where it's kind of like, okay, um, here's some scriptures, say this prayer, and that's that. Well, this is like a tiny booklet where we talk about real world problems. This is just one subject matter, it's anxiety. So I write multiple subject matters, introducing a real world problem and how you can overcome it with either a closer relationship with Jesus or a relationship with Jesus. And my plan right now, because of the pandemic, I haven't put the books out in the public yet, but my plan is to put them out in waiting areas so that people can read through them, while they're like at beauty salons, doctor's offices, places like laundromats, places like that.
And I think that's a interesting idea. So someone because I know when I'm sitting in the waiting room, well, pre-COVID anyway, I would pick up that magazine that's on the table or that book that's on the table and flip through it, and I might find something interesting because I'm sitting there waiting. So how did you come up with that idea?
Well, honestly, it was rained down from heaven. Jesus himself gave it to me. And I'm a firm believer in the Bible when it tells us about utilizing our talents. And I believe we're supposed to utilize our talents and gifts, for ourselves. God gives us a way of making finances for our talents, but there's also that percentage of our time and talent that we're supposed to give to him. And that is one way that I give my talent back to the Lord.
I think that's excellent. That's such a great idea.
Thank you.
So as I was looking at your bio, it mentions your YouTube channel. You have a pretty sizable social media presence. So talk a bit about how you utilize YouTube and other social media platforms to engage with your audience.
Well, I want to thank you for calling it sizable. I don't know if I would call it sizable, but at one point it was, I did have quite large views for the area because I was a brand ambassador for a local company here in town. And it was like a niche market that was just getting on the stock market and everybody was wanting to know about it. So I had like maybe 25,000 views, between 10,000 and 25,000 views on those videos. Since I have switched over to writing about, publishing books and things that go along for authors, it's a much, much smaller niche. So the views are much smaller, but it's growing. And what I do is I really focus a lot on people who want to write books and they have no idea where to start, and so they can, if you're willing to write the book, if you're willing to do the work, then you can learn from watching my channel, which is author LaMonique Mac on YouTube. I also like to engage with the community. There's the AuthorTube community on YouTube. If you use hashtag AuthorTube and you want to learn about writing, that's big on YouTube. And also BookTube, hashtag BookTube, if you want to learn about what books are out that are interesting to read and things like that. That's another big community on YouTube. So I really want to connect with the community, and I also want to connect with others. And I don't ever want someone not to be able to publish their book because they can't afford like an indie publishing service like mine, or they can't afford writing coaching. So if you're, like I said, if you're willing to do the work, it's there for you on my YouTube channel. Currently, I do have a course on YouTube that's free called KDP Publishing, and I'm going to take you from zero to publish, and by the end we are going to push that publishing button and you can get your book out of your heart and mind and into a sellable format.
I think that's great because that's the great thing about this digital age. I think previously a lot of people were hesitant to take that step because out of fear of rejection. So it's great to have people and resources like you and YouTube putting that type of content out there. Yeah, on your YouTube page, you're a writing coach and you do things like telling people how to get published on Kindle if they choose to do so. So talk a
Yes.
bit about your writing background, and also what led you to take your talents and basically share that with others and tell people how to get it done.
Okay, well, I've always been a writer my whole life. Like once you read my book, Poor Little Mixed Girl, you're kind of see that I was ADHD all over the place.
Mm.
It's never explicitly said in the book, but what you kind of can read, that's what the character is doing. And so anytime I ever wanted to convey something in an articulate manner, I would do it through writing. And like my writing, the intelligence would come out, and people might, because my actions didn't line up with that, people would be like so floored. And so ever since I was a child, I knew I wanted to write a book. Once I became an adult, I had no idea of how to go about self-publishing. And we didn't have KDP, back then. And so I would kind of like research, and I saw these vanity publishing companies, and you'd have to purchase at least $1,000 worth of books or thousands of dollars worth of books in order to vanity publish. I didn't want to go the traditional route because, like you said, fear of rejection. I really couldn't take querying publishing companies. And I know it's a numbers game. You send out 10 and you might get one yes, or probably more than that. And I just didn't want to go through that. I wanted a guaranteed yes, I'm going to put all my time and effort in writing this book. And yes, it's going to be published. So that's what led me to wanting to publish my book. Now in 2014, I had friends who were ministers and they were also writers, and they had books out, but they had no idea how to market their books. And since I had went to school for business and marketing, they hired me to do all of their marketing for them. And at one point I said, well, I've been wanting to write a book for years. So in exchange, we exchanged services. They taught me how to write the book, and I helped them with their marketing. And I have like a teaching spirit as well. That's another one of my gifts, is to teach. And I really will not be satisfied just doing something for myself. I have to teach somebody else how to do it too. So after a number of years of, honing in on writing, studying, through internet classes, and just honing in on that, I began to publish for other people and coach others.
That's great. So now let's pivot towards your work. We're
Mm-hmm.
here today to talk about Poor Little Mixed Girl, which is autobiographical, but it's a memoir, of course, because you're a grown lady and no
Yeah.
longer a little girl. So what made you choose this specific period in your life for this book?
Okay. Well, I don't really, so first of all, I want to say, I really don't know exactly what category to put it in because it is based on a true life story.
Mhm.
But to protect people, I fictionalized it. So it's like a bit of creative nonfiction.
Mhm.
But I started in the period of me being 12 years old because I wanted it to be something interesting to young adult readers. And and that category usually starts out around 12. So the book goes through the age period of me from 12 to 16. And I'm hoping that someone else who reads that, because I was adopted, and at one point I probably was considered like a foster child. And so someone who's going through that, either a foster child, someone who's adopted, or someone who just grew up with a lot of negativity and spoken over them, they can see, well, wow, look at the obstacles that this person had to face. And yet, they're an overcomer, and I can overcome too.
Well, I think that's great. So what I'll do now is I'll share the screen and I'll allow you to read for us.
This is excerpt from chapter 2 of Poor Little Mixed Girl. Chapter is called Friends Ready? Okay. LaMonica, just do your work and tend to your own business. Don't worry about being on any of these people's groups or teams. They don't want someone like you participating anyway. But Mama, Gillette and her sister Gwen playing basketball, and they're black. Yeah, that's because they live over here, and they're all black. If you were all white or all black, you'd be okay with these folks. But because you're mixed, they won't ever accept you. I've told you time and time again, stop running up behind folks. I don't bring you to school to make friends or even to join groups. You are here every day to get your lesson out. Do you understand me? Yes. Okay, Mama. Excerpt from Poor Little Mixed Girl, chapter 3, Miss Eleanor. LaMonica began reflecting on the first time she found out why she was different. She was only a small child, and a white lady showed up at Mama's front door. She looked like an angel. She was tall with long blonde hair and carrying an armful of clothes. The blonde-haired angel entered the living room, and all LaMonica could manage was just to stare at her with wonder, because you didn't ask adults questions when they were in the middle of talking. I brought some clothes for LaMonica, the angel said. Oh, okay, Mama responded. LaMonica just continued to stare at the golden-haired angel. No one like this ever came to Mama's house. LaMonica began noting everything about her. Aside from being tall with blonde hair that reached her booty, she had blue eyes and she wore a beret hat. For some reason, LaMonica felt drawn to this lady, and she didn't want to miss not one single detail about her. Details were especially hard for LaMonica, so this made her continue staring at the visitor intensely to get the job done. This looked quite awkward. The visitor never spoke to LaMonica directly. She only spoke to Mama about LaMonica. I'll be bringing her some more clothes by here soon, Mrs. Powers. Okay, that's fine, Mama responded. Yeah, I'm going to be trying to find me a job, and I moved into an apartment down the street on Washington so I can come visit more often. Mama didn't say much in response. She had that look on her face that meant she wasn't in agreement with something but didn't feel like arguing. And just like that, as quick as she had come, the blonde-haired angel was gone. Who was that, Mama? LaMonica asked. That was your mother. But Mama, aren't you my mother? Yes, but that's your real mother, Angie. Oh. LaMonica was dumbfounded. And that's how she found out she was adopted. Mama said Angie used to come by and visit when LaMonica was a toddler, but she couldn't remember. Mama, what did I do when Angie came to visit me back then? The same thing you did today? Just sit there and stare at her? Oh, okay. Look, I'm your mama, but Angie is your real mother. And that was the sum total of the adoption talk. Excerpt from Poor Little Mixed Girl, Chapter 5, The Babysitter. So LaMonica had taken the note and waited until Mama fell asleep, and very quietly, without making her bed creak, she opened the curtain and read it by moonlight. Dear LaMonica, you have to know by now I have a crush on you. More than a crush. I have feelings for you. You are so beautiful inside and out. I know you can't even see it. And to me, that makes you even more beautiful. I think about our talks after school long after they happen. You're on my mind at dinner time, when I'm doing my homework, and even when I fall asleep at night. I wish we could go to the movies together, or even just talk on the phone sometimes. I know your mom is strict, and she would never allow that. When you come to South, I want you to be my girlfriend, and we can spend a lot more time together. You have my heart, girl. Please say yes. With love, Randall. LaMonica had been devising different places to hide the note ever since she had brought it home. Mama had been a security guard. Mama might have been a security guard, but she had the qualities of a detective. She had found several things that LaMonica had tried to hide before, including her diary. It would only be a matter of time before Mama found it under the bed. So LaMonica decided to go ahead and read it again, since Mama wasn't home, and then put it in her jean pocket. Just as she was placing the letter in her Jordache jeans, she looked up and saw Miss Damona standing in her doorway. What is that you just put in your pocket, LaMonica? Nothing. Well, it didn't look like nothing to me. Looked like a folded up note. LaMonica was a horrible liar. She couldn't come up with anything, so she just stood there dumbfounded. Girl, hand me that letter that is in your pocket now. LaMonica handed the letter over to Miss Damona with embarrassment. Miss Damona smelled it deeply first. Then she spoke. Nice cologne, she said mockingly. Then she began reading the letter. LaMonica felt so embarrassed. The more she thought about the words that were on that paper, the more embarrassed she felt. LaMonica would look on the floor, then look up again at Miss Damona. It seemed like it was taking forever for her to finish such a brief letter. and her face wasn't giving any indication of what was going on in her mind. She hadn't spoken a word since she remarked on the cologne. Finally, Miss Demona finished the letter after what felt like an eternity. She slowly pulled the page away from covering her face, and her eyes appeared. She glared at LaMonica with what could only be described as hate. Who the hell does your fast tail think you are? Having a boy write you a letter like that? You sitting up there meeting with a boy at school and letting somebody get that close to you? Have you let him play under your clothes yet? What? LaMonica exclaimed in disbelief. Girl, don't you say what to me. I've been watching how you talk to your mama, answering her with yes and no. You're supposed to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, when addressing adults. And don't you ever in your life say what to me. Your mama gave me full permission to whoop you if I need to. And I will grab a switch and tear your tail up if need be. Yesterday, when I was moving in, you didn't even come and help. Ain't no way any of my nieces and nephews from down south would have been so rude. Or maybe you just don't know a doggone thing, since your mama babyfies you so much. All I know is, if you think this boy likes you for anything more than playing under your clothes, then you ain't got the sense God gave a fool. Uh-huh, he does like me. We talk about books and all kinds of things. We don't even talk about nasty stuff. And I am smart. I won the spelling bee for the entire district last year. And my mama says I'm smart. Girl, have you lost your goddamn mind? Oh, if you were my child, I would slap the mess out of you right now. Mrs. Powers ain't taught you not to answer adults back. I will get a switch and whoop you right now, but you've got me so upset. If I hit you, I might break your narrow tail in two. LaMonica, you ain't nothing but a fool, right? Mrs. Powers was right. Mrs. Powers' family was right about you. You ain't gonna turn out to be nothing but a little whore like your mama. Because ain't no way a boy wrote you a letter like this unless you was acting fast with him first. Now I want you to show me that boy when I drop you off to school so I can tell him a thing or two. He doesn't go to my school, Miss Demona, LaMonica said. Then how are you meeting up with him? He comes up there after school to wait for his sisters. Demona should have understood some of this from the letter, but she had become so angry with LaMonica that she could hardly think straight. Okay, well, I want you to point him out to me when I pick you up after school. And it seems like you and that boy may have either been gearing up to have sex or are having sex. So if you don't want me to tell your mama that's what's been going on, you'd better keep everything that happened today between us. LaMonica was only 12 years old and still a virgin. But if Miss Demona told mama something like that, she would most likely believe her. LaMonica was routinely in trouble, and it would be her word over the word of an adult. She decided she had no choice but to listen to Miss Demona. LaMonica went to school that day, and Miss Demona came to pick her up. She was hoping she had forgotten about the incident. It was just her luck that Randall was up at the school early. She saw Randall before he saw her and waited on the other side of the school building so she wouldn't have to talk to him or get caught near him when Miss Demona pulled up. As soon as Miss Demona pulled up in the school's front driveway, LaMonica jumped in the car, and Miss Demona demanded to know if that was Russell standing in the front of the building. LaMonica hesitated. Answer me, gal, or I'm gonna have to tell your mama you've been having sex with a boy. LaMonica wanted to defend herself against this lie. She hadn't even thought about sex, but after what had happened between her and Miss Demona this morning, she knew better than to defend herself. Yes, that's him. Excuse me? What did you say? Yes, what? Yes, ma'am, LaMonica said out of compliance. That's what I thought. Miss Demona proceeded to get out of the car. LaMonica rolled the window down just a crack so it wasn't noticeable, but she could still listen. Hey, young man, is your name Randall? Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm Miss Demona. I'm helping Mrs. Powers out with LaMonica. Oh, yes, I'm friends with LaMonica. Yes, that's what I'm here to talk to you about. I found your little letter. And LaMonica doesn't need any friends at this time, especially not any friends that are boys. I'm working with Mrs. Powers to help get LaMonica under control. She comes from a rough background. A rough background? Randall asked. Yes. She actually was one of those drug babies.
All right. Thanks for sharing that with us. And yeah, so like you said, there's a lot of you said you this is basically fictionalized nonfiction, like you've changed a few names to protect some people, but
Yeah.
this book is still very personal to you. So what would you like others to take away from this story, and how do you think this story can help others?
Well, right there, that scene that we just read, Miss Demona was the babysitter
Mhm.
for LaMonica. And it's important that parents, kind of, have a talk with their kids and see what's going on. In my real life, that wasn't a babysitter, that was another family member. But to protect them, I kind of diverged characters and things like that. But since I've been helping others write stories, they've been telling me their personal stories that happen with actual babysitters, and the parents don't know until 20 years later now that they're telling their stories. So it's important to check in with your kids, regarding any adults that they're around, and have open dialogue. But also, what's important to take away from that is, like I said earlier, LaMonica was under so much emotional abuse,
Mhm.
and possibly a little bit of physical abuse as well. And it's important to understand that where we got those limiting beliefs from once we get to be adults. Because sometimes, as soon as we want to try something, no, you can't do it. The, all I heard was, you're going to be like your mama, you know. And so, you saw the way she was described in the story.
Mhm.
And so you have to understand, those limiting beliefs were placed there, and you can overcome them. So I think it's important for parents to read the story, for teens to read the story, to understand they can overcome, for parents to read it. I think it's a good book if you like banned books. I kind of compare it to A Child Called It. And I also compare it to A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich, because there's a little bit of alcohol abuse. So, there's a lot of political incorrect speech going on because it's real. It's from the 80s. There's a little bit of disparaging, names used for races. Is how people talk when they're at home about others. Is what happens when races collide. There's a lot of dynamics going on in the book, but I truly hope that it will help others to maybe see another side of life. We're talking a lot about the hood in that book. There's hoods all over the US, and maybe somebody who's not from that side of life, it can inform them of, what it's like growing up over there. One of my mentors, Carol Breckenridge, who is another author and the leader of the Tuscaloosa Writing Group, in her review, she kind of said this was be a really good book for people to read who work with children who, are marginalized.
Mhm.
So, my hope is that people just are enlightened by it, and really whatever God wants them to be enlightened by it. And
So yeah, for those who would be interested in reading this book in its entirety, where can they find a copy?
it is on Amazon. Yeah. Poor Little Mix Girl, you can get it under Kindle. Right now, I'm running a special on it. The ebook on Kindle is like, it ranges anywhere from 99 cents to $2.99, depending on if there's a special going on it. And the paperback is on Amazon as well, under LaMonique Mac or Poor Little Mix Girl.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. But before I let you go, I'd like
Mhm.
to circle back to your role as a writing coach.
Okay.
Um, and you spoke a bit about your basically your own anxieties about publishing and rejection, but let's say that's out of the way, and you
Okay.
just need to get your work on the paper. So what advice can you give a budding young writer who wants to get their own work out into the world? What advice can you give them?
Well, get in networks around people who are doing what you want to do. Like I mentioned, I'm a member of the Tuscaloosa Writing Group here in Tuscaloosa. If there's not one in your area, or right now you don't really want to meet, you can. There's writing groups online. I would definitely say look into the writing community. #AuthorTube. If you want to learn about character building, if you want to learn about the steps of publishing. There's a lot of information if you're willing to do the work for free. A lot of people who have went to school and have master's degrees in MFAs in writing are willing to teach you on YouTube. So I would soak up all the knowledge that you can soak up, and then implement one small thing in that, and read authors in the genre that you think you want to write in. If you want to write how-to books, then read other authors in those books. If you want to write fiction, figure out what genre of fiction you want to write. Is it fantasy? Is it historical fiction? Whatever you want to write, read those other authors. And that'll give you a sense of how to write. Another thing is to create an outline of your writing. And I really recommend creating an outline of your writing. And I talk about that on my YouTube channel.
So for those wanting to view your YouTube channel, I don't think we've plugged that yet. How can they find your YouTube channel?
I'm author LaMonique Mac.
So that's author LaMonique Mac. Yes.
On YouTube.
All right. Well, LaMonique, thanks for joining us today. That was a wonderful interview. And I hope everyone is going to check out Poor Little Mixed Girl now. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And until next time, everyone, goodbye.
Thank you for having me.